Okay, good evening. Oh, Josh, you all set?
Yes.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Alton Board of Selectmen's budget meeting to order September 28th at 6:01 p.m. Sorry for the delay. I was late getting here. Until further notice, to keep our members and staff safe and to comply with RSA 91, the state of emergency and the governor's orders, restrictions on public gatherings, the town of Alton has moved from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings. To remotely attend the meeting, audio and video, visit our website, www.alton.nh.gov, on the day of the meetings for the instructions, or telephone the Selectmen's office, 603-875-2113 or 603-875-0229. There continues to be no public input at this time. Now, if you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silence. Oh, you can leave.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, meeting purpose. Number 2, department budget approvals. First up would be the assessing department, 4193. Good evening, sir.
Evening.
It's already presented, these are just.
Yes, approvals.
Yes.
As you folks have sat with Rob, that we've already gone over his budget. Tonight is the approval of the budget or any adjustments that you folks feel that is necessary.
If I remember correctly, Mr. Chairman, we didn't make any changes in this budget.
None of the budget yet.
You talked about different things, and you've not made any decisions on it. Contracted services was the highest increment. Am I correct with that, Rob?
Correct.
And as I recall, so a one-time,
One-time fee, yeah, that's the cost for the revaluation. Won't have to pay that again, I'll be certified when this is over.
Which we have to do in accordance with the state RSAs. If you took the 80,000 off that, you'd be basically almost level funded at this point. So if you gentlemen have no other questions and you agree with the bottom line of the assessment department, I would entertain a motion.
make a motion to approve the budget for as it is.
Second. Motion made by Phil Whitman to approve the assessing department's budget of $229,167. Second by Phil Whitman. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Wentworth? Yes. Votes in the affirmative. Thank you, Rob. Have a lovely evening. Number 2 will be planning department. Good evening, Jessica. Thank you for joining us. As you recall, the last time we met with Jessica and went over a budget, it had a slight increase of about 3%. Most of it all comes from the salary line item of full-time wages.
Mm-hmm. 4,000 more.
So if you gentlemen have no questions or concerns about a budget, I'd entertain a motion to approve it as presented.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Mr. Holt to approve $118,131 budget for the Alton Planning Department as presented, second by Mr. Rochelle. We'll open up for discussion at this point. Not, I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Budget passes. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, thank you very much.
Have a lovely night. Town clerk, tax collector. Hey, sir, how are you this evening? Good. I was not here for Lisa's budget when it was presented, but I did review it. And basically, the increase is stemming all from primarily the full-time wages. And if bio's just up a little bit. And office supplies is up just a little. Other than that, it's pretty much level funded except for printing of the signs.
Printing signs is up a bit, but I think that's because of the number of elections, right?
No, this is the tax bills last year.
Oh,
The
oh,
700 was encumbered, and this year it's back in.
Okay, okay.
Gentlemen, if somebody has any questions or concerns, I'd entertain a motion to approve the town clerk's budget of $176,269 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Paul Rochelle to approve town clerk's budget of $176,269, second by Mr. Holt. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Town clerk's budget is approved as presented. Thank you, Lisa. Enjoy your evening.
Second.
Oh, I was trying to skip over you. Make you wait a little longer.
That's a tough one.
It's so nice to see you. We don't see you very often. And when we do see you, it's not always fun. And gentlemen, budget is $14,365. Roughly down $8,000 from last year. And that's due because there's less elections next year.
Make a motion to accept the budget at $14,365.
Second.
Motion made by Phil Whitman to approve the elections budget of $14,365, second by Mr. Rochelle. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald? Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is the affirmative. Moving on to Parks and Recreation Department. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for joining us tonight. And the Parks and Rec Department budget was presented at $124,077. Roughly $7,000 from last year. And basically, all stems due to the full-time and part-time salary increases and the benefit buyout. If there's no discussions or concerns, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Increase of 3,000. That was for the old home week?
3,000 was put in there instead of doing a warrant article, yes.
Make a motion to approve the Parks Recreation budget, $124,077.
Second.
Made by Phil Whitman and second by Mr. Holt to approve the budget of $124,077 Parks and Rec. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes in the affirmative. Grounds and Maintenance Department. Grounds and Maintenance was presented the budget of $285,865, up roughly $35,000 from last year. Basically, it intends to request another position, laborer's position. That was where primarily the increase comes from, along with the full-time wages for the merit and the COLA. And general expenses up $4,000.
So we had one new laborer position in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we had, not discussing it tonight, the highway, but we had one in highway.
Mhm.
also.
Two in highway,
One laborer position.
one laborer, one truck driver.
Okay.
And then you also have one new employee for the fire department, which the Board of Selectmen already approved earlier this summer.
But I remember we discussed these, and we came to the conclusion, the two new laborers between the two departments and that truck driver position.
That COVID expense you're putting through the reimbursement?
Our current COVID expenditures, yes, they all go to the COVID line item.
Yeah, but are we putting them into the state?
If that's where they're going, their line item is COVID expenses.
So this is next year's budget. So as of right now, no, those are not going to go to the state.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
That West Alton Community Center, we talked about shutting the electricity off.
Well, we talked about it, but
Yeah, no,
I'd still leave $1 in there in case something does have to be turned on, if work has to be done or anything like that. If you're thinking about zeroing that out, but the West Alton Community Center, $100 is not for electricity, it's more for the maintenance of the building if they have to buy anything or replace a window or clapboards or do any painting or layer some steps so nobody goes up on it, falls through, if I'm not mistaken there, Kelly.
Right, or changing the locks.
Locks, there's a line item in the electricity.
There's a West Alton Community Center line item. Right.
Electricity's been shut off.
Electricity has been shut off. Electricity has been shut off, Mr. Holt.
And that was a separate line item.
That was a separate line item. Yeah. This $100 in this one here is for primarily maintenance purposes.
well, it says here. Says here, West Alton Community Center Electric, 703. It's $429. It's still in the budget. We didn't,
We haven't got new budget pages, so you can recommend to take that out tonight if you want. But these are the budget pages from that we originally got, so nothing was resubmitted to us. It's up to the selectmen to put $1 in there. And I would suggest you at least leave $1 in there in case you ever want to turn it back on to do any work for electricity or something.
want a motion on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, that would be nice, and we get the whole board to vote on.
I'd like to make a motion that we change account number 703 to $1 from $429.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Holt to reduce line item 703 from $429 down to $1, making a difference of $428 subtracting from the budget. Second by Paul Rochelle. Any discussion? Being none, I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Pope?
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Right now, the budget stands at 285,437, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Is that 10%?
25,000 would be a 10% increase. Right now, you're up above 35,000, so you're up about 7.5%.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed earlier, there was 4 positions that were being sought after.
Four positions in the town being sought after, yes. 2 laborers position, 1 for this department, 1 for the highway department, a truck driver's position for the highway department, and a full-time added on for the fire department for an EMT, so they can meet their schedule demands, because the schedules have been voided, been absent on some schedules.
That was the idea of putting full-time.
That's what it is, yes, that's why we agreed to the fire department earlier this summer.
I'll agree with that, anybody down there. That's why when we did this, we had 4 hired to keep it staffed year-round.
But it was still based on like a per diem schedule, because they had to sign up for their shifts, and they haven't been able to fill all the shifts because a lot of our EMTs and our paramedics have other jobs which have required them to do overtime in other places.
When we set it up, it wasn't per diem, it was per diem for the people on call, but we were hiring full-time, 2 paramedics per shift, so that ambulance was covered 24/7.
They were never hired full-time. They were never hired full-time because we don't pay benefits to those to cover those 2 shift, 12-hour shifts. It was there to, can you help me out here, Town Administrator?
To ensure some paramedic coverage in case, like 12-hour shifts, I think it was, or maybe
2 12-hour shifts.
24-hour shifts or something like that, yeah. Because as the years are going by, it's getting more difficult to fill all the shifts.
That was the idea of that, was so they could hire them, keep them there as full-time workers, not, if it wasn't gonna work out, sharing it. That they were to hire them and put them in to work the shifts.
That's not the way I understood it. It would be to hire them full-time.
They were supposed to have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage and 2 paramedics on that ambulance.
But they had to sign up for the shifts. It was never intended to be hired as full-time because there's no money in there for benefits, there was no money in there for insurance or anything like that.
It was like one of the steps to getting to full-time, I think, a
And this is
gradual
what we
thing.
seem to go through every budget season. The shifts seem to slack off just before budget season.
I've been hearing about this year-round for several years. It's getting more difficult.
So by doing the second full-time position along with the chief, second full-time position will cover that extended hour and those shifts, so there's no
The second
voids.
full-time position was to put another officer there, so there's an officer in charge all the time. And that's what the chief said.
That was also part of it, also to help cover the shifts that had the open voids.
Perhaps this could be discussed when the chief is here next.
No, right, and we're getting off the subject where we're supposed to be at.
What I did want to ask is, what would be the increase of 4 employees, 2 laborers, truck driver, and another person on the fire department would be roughly, if you could give me a number of what the 4 positions
The fires,
would increase the budget?
this year overall going years forward, Paul. Because the first year for the fire department would only be for a half a year. And that was roughly 33,000. I believe when the chief was here that night, it was going to be 66. Mr. Roberts stated the truck driver would be 34. The laborer would be 28. And Parks and Rec, I believe we have it right there, 23,000. For that year. So you look, with benefits and everything, what I've estimated is going to be around 250,000.
Increase.
Pennies. Well, salaries are going to be 150, but add in family plans for every single one.
Right.
There's $12,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, right? So,
Police, yeah.
and you got retirement system, you got social security, you got to add in. I'm estimating it's right around between 200, 250.
I wasn't thinking quite that high, I was thinking like 175, but, yeah, you're.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Could I ask a question of Kelly? What if, we only went along with one part-time employee this year?
A part-time employee?
Yeah, the new position. Only one new one instead of two.
She only has one.
She's only asking for one.
She's only asking for one.
She's only asking for one labor.
She's asking for one labor.
Oh.
The highway department's asking for two, or one labor and one truck driver.
Okay, okay. Well, all right, then I'll ask that question. What if, the board didn't approve it? You're one labor. Would you still be able to exist?
Yes, I brought this forward.
I know you did.
It was our request.
Yes. But you'd still be able to exist, all right?
Yes, we would, yes.
I'd like to elaborate on that. If there was one of the laborers on, if we chose to have a laborer on, added to the highway department, could that laborer be someone who could fill in at times?
Yes.
Well, that's the idea of adding one for her department, one in Kenny's.
We need to
But
watch
we wanted to do the brick down the bay.
I know.
Pull them together and whatever who they're doing.
Right, I understand.
I think there is a value to an additional laborer, whether it's in highway or ground maintenance. There's plenty of work to do. There's things that we're not able to do right now.
Mhm.
We do have people on vacation, so we were planning on painting and it rained, it's been rain, we have someone on vacation. So it's just little things like that that come up. We have a lot of projects that aren't gonna get done.
As you know, we met over in a couple of different projects, yeah. I'm just concerned with the increases. If we approved all four, that would be quite an increase to the budget.
What is the,
There's also,
town hall building expense?
It's
Yeah.
The line item on.
309.
What number?
309?
Virgil, how did you answer that? Just kidding.
They're the same.
I did? No.
But why ain't
Yeah, that's the same.
out of the Clock Moral Fund?
So-
This building. Should be coming out of the Clock Moral Fund.
Everything cannot come out of the Clough Moral Fund, or there will be no money in the Clough Moral Fund. It's interest only. We, pick and choose the bigger projects to help with that, so it doesn't affect the budget. And these items Kelly, I'm taking over for you. Feel free to jump in at any time, but
These are general maintenance items, they're not special projects, keep things moving along. And I believe that any funds with Clough Moral needs to be approved in advance.
Yes,
Yes.
by the trustees of the trust funds.
and the selectmen.
And you'll see that town hall building expense has been overspent this year already, and we're in September. So these funds are needed for this line item, because of the age of the building and the work that's needed here.
Yeah, but a lot of this could be on the Clock Moral Fund. That's what that fund was built for. How much in the Clock Moral Fund?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's.
Not an interest that we can use.
Right.
There's only about 250,000 in there, and you're looking at possibly raising money to improve the sprinkler system. Here, we've been putting a little bit of money away.
Yeah.
That could go towards that. I always took that the Clough Moral Trust Fund was for more major projects than it was for everyday maintenance projects.
That's my understanding.
That's the way I read it, and that's the way I felt about it. Like when we did the bricks outside and the walkway and the new ramp, that was used for that. The handicap accessibility was used for that one time, I believe, years ago.
The windows, I think,
The
too.
windows were used for that. The roof up top, I believe, was used for that when they redid that. Major projects, I believe it was used then. There was one time that fund all the interest got used up except for about $50,000 for the last 8 years or so, and money has built back up due to the stock market. So the everyday operating features out of it, I don't believe was ever intended for the Moral Trust Fund. Myself, the way I interpret it.
That's my understanding.
So gentlemen, I'll give you my thought on it because I'm waiting for you guys all to talk about the exposition. I can't agree with all the positions that are coming up throughout all the departments. With the highway department, and I know I'm getting off the Parks and Rec, but I'm gonna go for a laborer's position on the highway department only, and along with the new position at the fire department. This time I can't vote for a new labor position here or a new truck driver's position. But I can go with the laborer's position with the idea and the understanding that that position would be a floating position between the Parks and Rec Building and Grounds departments and the highway department when necessary, or there's individuals out on vacation or extended sick time, that they could fill up the areas, because hopefully somebody would come in with a medical card that would have that position as a laborer, could drive a truck over 10,000 pounds, possibly with the CDL B2, even though it's not what we might be looking, or I'd be looking for. But this person could be a floater to help out both departments either way. So that's what I'm looking for. If there's any more than 2 laborers position this year, I will not vote for one of them.
So it'd be one full-time laborer split between park, grounds and maintenance.
And they'd be, to me, I'm looking at they'd be assigned to the highway department with the understanding that that position would be a floater when Kelly would need it for her buildings and grounds or shoveling or something like that, she'd call up and request, could we have that individual day because I have this, or she knows she has a project coming up next week. I could use an extra hand. Could I have this individual, whoever it may be, he or she? Depending on where buildings and grounds and Parks and Rec are going, we talked about this, forming, maybe merging some departments together. We have possibly a new highway agent coming in next year. We've gotten the resignation. I could go along, like I said, with one laborer's request between the 2 departments. Not share them or not have a split salary here and a split salary there. It'd be one out of the highway department with the understanding that the selectmen have stated that it will be a floating position when needed by the buildings and grounds for this year.
That's what I was asking Kelly, if that would work for you.
I think that's a great.
Okay.
So that would change Kelly's budget to,
Take another 23,000 off. I believe that's what it was, right?
Yes.
Also, there were
$759.
a couple other expenses. The uniforms was $270 and recruitment cost was $274.
You gotta slow down for a minute for me.
So what's the, why don't you do it line by line in the dollar amount? And then Laura, yes.
So it's 4194011, 23,759. $4194021, the overtime wages, we would reduce $1,097.
I'd recommend you keep that. I don't know where next year is gonna go.
Okay.
The way this year has gone, for a $1,000 increase in your overtime, how much, your overtime is up? Go back one more page. Your overtime's up $5,000. I would say leave it there, only because I still don't know your total expense for this year, what it's gonna be for your overtime. Everything that's going on, if we do not get reimbursed by the state for some of this overtime that has been expended because of COVID expenses, then I would say at least leave it there, just in case this thing breaks out again next spring, we don't get over it, you gotta do more sanitization, you gotta have the guys hire on for time and a half.
Okay.
$5,000 to me isn't gonna make or break my decision, so I'm not too worried about that extra 5,000 there, as I was with 23. I don't know how the other gentlemen feel though.
The next one will be 4194206. That was uniform, and that was $270.
That'd be minus 270?
Yes, and then there was one final item. The recruitment cost. 4194882. Or $274, 274. That was the recruitment cost.
How much would that be? Reduced?
Well, wait a minute, Jim, before we do that, do you want the 5,000 taken out of the 1,000 taken out of the overtime? I think that's what you said, right, $1,000?
$1,097.
$1,097. Do you want that taken out of the overtime or leave it alone?
Oh, that overtime accounts on,
Not gonna leave you enough, winter and everything?
Well, like Selectman Wentworth said, we're not really sure what next year's gonna bring, so it would be, we need to leave it in there.
That's why I was saying, that 1,097 isn't gonna make or break, you know, the budget. So I would take that 1,090, leave that 1,097 in there. So we'd just be looking at reducing $23,759, $270 and $274, correct?
Do you come up with 24,303?
8.
The bottom.
Oh, for the bottom line?
Oh, that's what we're doing.
What one?
882.
882 was the staff recruiting, $274 she was taking out of that, correct?
274. Yep. And we also reduced 703 to $1. From 429.
You want me to get my calculator out too?
No, hold on. What's the difference?
I'm just kidding. Original was 285, 865,
3,000.
about $428. And that brought it down to 285, 437.
Say that again, Ruben.
I was just telling Laura what we had. She's gonna give you a total in a minute.
New total.
Okay.
And you're missing the original 428. We cut off that electricity line.
Okay, yeah.
So your new number is 261,134.
That's off the 285, right?
261, 134.
That puts the budget just under 5%.
How much?
It puts it just under 5%, sneeze under 5%.
All right.
That's something you can live with, Kelly? Yeah. Gentlemen, if there's no further discussion on this or any other line items you want to discuss, I would entertain a motion to approve the Parks and Rec Building and Grounds budget at 261, 134.
So moved.
Second. Made by Paul Rochelle to approve the Building and Grounds Maintenance budget at 261, 134. Second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Vote is in, Mr. Wentworth, votes in the affirmative. The budget passed at 261, 134. Next, we're going to move on to cemetery. Cemetery budget, of course, last year was 67,177. This year it'd be $69,213. Looking at about a 2.5% increase. Is there anything you needed to be added to this, Kelly, since we've met last met?
I have a question.
Well, let me have her finish first before you jump in on me.
Nothing to add.
When did we start paying the secretary the same stipend as the administrator?
Going on since the beginning. The reason for that, I took that salary and then we just divided that. Because at the time, the work was split.
How much do we have in that, capital reserve trust fund?
We have a building improvement one.
There's a couple of funds.
We have an expendable trust. Not
Yeah, it should say this one used for the run something.
$179,596 in the CTC Expendable Trust Cemetery.
You get that invested too good, ain't making much money.
If you remember, it was run down pretty bad here for a long time. It's just being able to get built back up.
Everyone's fighting to get it into these hands. It still ain't doing too good.
Gentlemen, if we have no further discussion or anything to talk about on line items, Budget presented was $69,213. I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holt to approve the cemetery budget of $69,213, second by Paul Rochelle. Any further discussion? Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
McDonald?
No.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is 4-4. Mr. Wentworth, Mr. Holt, Mr. Rochelle, Mr. Whitman voting for, Mr. McDonald voting against. The budget passes. Thank you, Kelly. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Cal.
Thank you.
Moving on to IT department. Josh, if you want to step down for a minute, or you can stay right there because we can turn our heads. You don't have to get up and move, I don't feel. Do you gentlemen feel he has to get up and move and sit at the table? Okay. You just won't be on camera, sir.
Unless he wants to.
IT department budget that was presented at 154,448. There were slight few increases there. General expense went to 3,500. Salary was another one of the expenses. But yet training went down to 17 from 3,200. You're looking at 154,448, down roughly $2,000, a little over $2,000 from last year.
Josh, why did 512, the software upgrades, why'd that take such a jump?
Be 912, 512.
So I can explain that pretty easily. This year, there were a lot of expenses caught up in this year's budget on specifically software upgrades for Windows servers. These are one-time charges, so basically spend the money, you get it done, and then you run the server for years and years until you need to upgrade it again. Or until the time comes where it becomes an issue if you don't upgrade. That's where we were at this year. So one-time cost, now that's out of the way, and the line is back to a lower amount.
So next year it'll go down, or this year?
Yes. So this year, this upcoming year, 2021, it would be a lot lower than this year.
And IT cell phones.
What's the line item, Virgil?
560. Last one.
Just a note on the cell phones. Not only is it just for like telephone service, but it also is for mobile data plans. And a lot of stuff, public safety is going mobile data. When they're out in the field, they need connectivity by 4G, eventually 5G. A lot of those service plans are caught up in this line. So as a lot of things move forward with 4G and LTE service, that line steadily.
Gentlemen, if no other questions on the IT budget, then I would entertain a motion of 154,448.
So move.
Second. Mr. Whitman has made a motion to approve the IT budget of 154,448, second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? If not, I'll poll the board. Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Yes. Mr. McDonald? Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Motion carries 4-4, 1 against. Mr. Holt, Mr. Rochelle, Mr. Whitman, Mr. Wentworth voting for, and Mr. McDonald voting against. Next, we'll be moving on to audio and visual meeting equipment, 4199. Level funded as from last year, $3,500. This is to replace any, right near the front,
Fourth one in from the end.
fourth one in from the beginning. You remember all this is required because of anything in here, the microphones, probably this little telephone thing here we have to talk into now.
Any sort of audio equipment or video equipment for
I still think microphones would be cheaper.
good.
I make a motion to approve the operating budget for the audio visual meeting department equipment.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rochelle to approve the audio visual equipment at $3,500, level funded from last year, second by Mr. Whitman. Any further discussion? Mr. Holt? Yes. Mr. McDonald?
No.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Ms. Wentworth, yes. Motion carries. Motion 4 was for Mr. Holt, Mr. Rochelle, Mr. Whitman, and Mr. Wentworth. Voting against was Mr. McDonald. And that takes care of meeting purpose Department of Budget approvals. We're moving on to Department budget presentations next.
Get the rest of the budget book at some point, Liz?
What are you missing?
We're missing the ledgers for the complete budget. We're missing the ledger
What do you mean the ledger?
for revenues and all that.
You mean your monthly expenditure report and revenue
So
report?
here we have a ledger, revenues and what expected to be in.
I don't think any estimated revenue's been done yet because they haven't started working on that MS4 form. And I don't remember those being in the budget before, Virgil. The revenues, what was anticipated for next year. Normally, we went off by our budget sheets that Laura would give to us at the end of the month or the beginning of the months, what has been spent up to date to this period. That's what I've always worked on.
We had a sheet that had the full budget last year, everything added in this year.
Right, and you kind of have that 2019, it showed like on the audio video was 35, 2020 was
Each
35.
budget, but we have a sheet that goes in the book usually that has the trust funds in it. It has the ledgers in it for revenue, anticipated revenues.
I've never seen that. I've never seen that in my budget.
The other books are in.
I don't think it was in my last year's budget.
It has what we voted on last year's budget and what this total budget would be. It's all on one page.
Well, we haven't gotten down that bottom page yet on what this total budget would be until we approve it. So I think once we have that done, then Laura can formulate that for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, the budget, yeah, when it's all done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that when it's all done.
And the
I think
full,
last year we made some decisions after we formulated the budget. We had to reduce, we did. I don't think we took a whole lot out.
One I'm still missing
Insurance.
is insurance.
Yeah, health and insurance, you won't be seeing that until probably November when we get the rates from the companies.
And I think last year we never got it till the 1st of December.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was late. Okay.
The budget committee didn't have it either. If there's no other discussion, I'd like to move on to Department budget presentation, conservation. Gene is here tonight to talk with us on that. Gentlemen, feel free tonight, if you feel a budget is there and you really have no concerns over it, make a motion to approve it. Then we don't have to call these folks back in for 5 minutes. If you feel comfortable with it, make a motion, we can always vote on it.
I encourage that.
I'll make a motion right now for the operating budget for Conservation Commission as presented.
I'll second it.
You want to hear from Mr. Gene in case he has something to say, he wanted to say to us? Motion was made by Paula Rochelle to approve the budget of the Conservation Commission as presented at 21,906. Basically, $447 more than last year. Second by Mr. Whitman. Do I have any discussion?
Yes, because last year we added 5,000 to it.
Right.
You take that out this year. You needed it last year.
Back in about March, we received a request from you to trim our budget of anything we possibly could, which we did, which was that $5,000 we had, plus a couple other things. So the projects that we had planned to do with that money did not get done, so it's still in the budget.
So, and that was the $5,600 for contracted services, right?
Yeah.
Yep, so the money's still there.
Those projects didn't get done yet.
No, we trimmed our budget by, I think, roughly 20% for it.
Just have one question.
So,
Line item 172, Lake monitoring.
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's where most of our water testing funds are. And we had to, I don't think we're gonna spend that much, but we felt we had to leave it the same because most of the testing is done by UNH. They've been so short-staffed this year that they haven't billed anybody for anything yet. We don't know what this year's is gonna be, so therefore we don't know what next year's is gonna be.
So you reduced it by $500.
We actually moved $500 to line 304. We've always supported some conservation, local conservation organizations like Boy Scouts. We gave some money one year to the high school environmental club. And we just wanted to put a line item in there that more accurately represented where the money goes. Came from a couple of other lines. Didn't change the bottom line at all.
Oh, but that's actually a good thing, because now on the conservation board, we have a young kid that's going to UNH for conservation that come out of the high school. So I don't know if that, part of that worked or what, but it's nice to see younger people coming in on the board. Interesting, you know?
All right, gentlemen, if there's no further discussion, I'll poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is in the affirmative. The budget passed at 21,906. Moving on to Budget Committee, which Pat O'Brien is going to call in. Thank you, Gene. Budget. There's a little uptick from last year from 1734 to 1806. Oh, funny thing happened out in 1806. Did you know that?
Yeah, well.
That must have
I was
happened.
gonna say your grandmother was born or something.
No, I just figured something had happened.
What happened to the
You got a laugh out of her, though, out of Liz.
I've been laughing more, you can't see my face.
Everybody, you can see you turning red.
We can tell the red.
Mr. O'Brien, are you with us?
Sure am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir. So gentlemen, tonight the budget presented to us is 1806. Do you have any questions or concerns for Mr. O'Brien on the budget of the Budget Committee?
What are you hiring, private transcriber?
So common practice, since at least I've been involved with the committee, is that we hire a part-time person to come in and transcribe the minutes for us. There has been some discussion this year in particular, especially with COVID and everything else that's going on, about transcribing from a video, perhaps after the meeting, or even perhaps maybe looking into some kind of software that could transcribe the majority of the meeting, and that way somebody just needs to go through afterwards and kind of separate and organize things. So there's a little bit of talk about that, but yes, at the present time, we have a part-time recording secretary.
Anybody else?
I don't have a question, I have more of a statement.
Yes, sir.
My statement is, and it's got nothing against anybody on the committee itself, I just don't think it's necessary.
What, the Budget Committee?
The budget committee is not necessary. I don't see why we have to go through everything twice. When we have all the departments and the department heads, their job is to correct and do their budgets, present them to us. And then we have to go through another process of going through the budget committee when we can deal directly with the department heads themselves. I think it's an expense we don't need.
Townspeople,
I understand that.
checks and balances on the select board.
Yeah, I understand that. And this was what, how many years ago was this voted on? Besides 40 years ago, it was voted on not too long ago at another time.
Yes, it was, to have it withdrawn.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Holt?
Your last meeting was canceled again. Was that because of a quorum?
The last meeting was not canceled. It was held.
Or what?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The most recent last meeting, yes, was canceled again due to quorum issue. We currently have 2 vacancies on the board, and Mr. LaRochelle, I do hear what you're saying, but I also agree that it is kind of a checks and balances. But at the same time, we don't necessarily have a whole lot of interest in it at the moment. So it will become increasingly difficult to hold meetings, especially if only one person is unavailable. So certainly a challenge this year that we will do our best to work through. We're trying to get it out there and, get some more interest in the committee, because it's really good, even for townspeople in general, to just come and get a better understanding of how the town operates and, all that goes into it, and especially in terms of funding. So, yes, it is a challenge, and we have had to cancel a couple meetings due to a quorum issue.
You got 5 on the board?
It's supposed to be 7, but yes, we have 5 currently.
Thank you.
There's 5 board members and 1 selectman rep and 1 school.
That's part of the 5 right now.
Yeah. Yep. No.
Okay, gentlemen, if no other questions or statements, do I have a motion to approve the budget? Just a minute.
I make a motion, we approve the budget committee, budget of 1806.
Yeah, I'll second that, Mr.
Motion made by Virgil McDonald to approve the budget of 1806, presented by the Budget Committee, seconded by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. LaChelle?
No.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Vote is in the affirmative, 4-4, 1 against. Voting for was Mr. Holt, Mr. Whitman, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Wentworth. Voting against was Mr. Rochelle. The only reason I'm stating that this week, so it's no more clarification for Mary when we get to the meeting, so she doesn't have to guess on the voices.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Pat. You too. So next, we're going to move on to library. Holly, would like to join us? Good evening, Holly. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you all in person.
Yes.
We have 3 trustees that are watching us, and they both offered their phone numbers. I think you have one of them, but they both offered their phone numbers if you.
Okay, gentlemen, you see before you a budget of $139,672, roughly down $4,000 from last year, just under 4,000.
She's done a great job here.
I'll let you gentlemen go and ask Holly any questions. Unless Holly would like to go first, just to outline any significant increases or decreases.
The rest of the budgets?
Oh, no, thank you. I don't think I could do that fairly anyway. I did give you an overview and activity sheet, and those first 2 lines are giving you what he just mentioned. And then I give you a paragraph with a breakdown of any changes to the line items. There is one sentence in there that you can also take note of. It is reflected in the figures you have, but we also have a $30 increase in library dues and fees. That's for the New Hampshire Library Trustee Association. We our board is supposed to consist of 5 people, currently it consists of 4. And so we're hoping to get that 5th person in, and then get an extra $30, New Hampshire Library Association due. So we've added that in for 2021.
Gentlemen, I will take that back. I did not realize there was an updated form there, so I read the wrong one. So it should have been $140,871, down roughly $3,000, $2,700 from last year. I did not know there was an updated one here, so I will take those pages out of my book. The town administrator just informed me, because I was late getting here, and I didn't look at my paperwork she put up.
Okay, and also on the sheet, I've given you the activity total so far from January from January to July. But I created another handout for you, which you have not seen yet, and I updated those totals to reflect figures through August. And also, it's a 3-page handout, and it gives you an idea of what the library's, what our COVID-19 response has been. Probably the question in your mind, what we might have been up to.
Yeah.
We started March 17th. We started, the building was closed to the public, but we were offering virtual services. And as of March 17th, we did have staff members working in the library, sometimes in teams. We were social distancing, but getting work done. We stepped up our digital services. We've seen an increase in our statistics for the New Hampshire downloadable audiobooks. And we implemented a virtual story time. We started a Facebook page and Instagram. Storytime is now on Pinterest. And enhanced overdrive services. We did receive that New Hampshire Downloadable Audiobook Consortium, which is Overdrive. That is a statewide consortium, and naturally, when a lot of libraries closed, a lot of people turned to digital services. In fact, a lot of what we did while we were closed is numerous phone calls from our patrons who weren't originally using Overdrive, but of course they wanted to start using the digital services because our doors were closed. The state had CARES Act money that they added to, also given all libraries hand sanitizer, and they've also purchased a Read Square digital platform that we used for our summer reading program this year. So that's what we started that on March 17th, and then on July 19th, our building remained closed to the public, but we opened up our book return for book drops, and we also accepted returns by appointment. At that time, we were also still getting some returns for interlibrary loans, but the state had shut down the interlibrary loan services. And at that time also, we told all of our library patrons, there won't be any overdue fees. Please hold your library materials and, safely at home for everyone's safety. But then, as you can see, on June 19th, we opened up the book drop and started taking in those returns. They didn't have to bring them back if they didn't want to, but we started taking them off of their hands. And then phase 3 started July 8th. Our building was still closed to the public, but we started offering curbside pickup, which we still offer. And I think this is a service, along with our digital story time, that we're just going to continue to offer, even when we all get past COVID and open our doors again. But with our curbside service, our patrons can either go online and reserve materials online, or they can call us and we'll do our best to pull whatever we can off the shelf. Or that's how they do curbside service. One way or another, they tell us what they want, and then we pack it up. We're always wearing masks, and we bring it to them. We'll bring it out to their car if they're more comfortable doing that, or they meet us at one of our entrances. But no one enters the library except for library staff. And when the emergency management team and yourselves did start allowing the trustees to meet in the meeting room, the trustees have had a couple of meetings in the meeting room, but for the most part, the library, especially the lower level, remains closed to the public. Then in August 20th, we did open up by appointment for copies, facts, and browsing, limited browsing. And we've changed our hours a little to reflect this. On Fridays, we have specific hours where patrons can set up appointments and come into the library and browse some library materials. I pulled them out to the middle, the open middle portion of the library where the circulation desk is. The wings right now are closed to the public, but the staff will go in and pull anything that anyone needs. So we moved that to Fridays. We have a 10-hour day on Fridays, and the reason we did that is so that the library, any materials can stay in quarantine for 3 days before we open up again, before anybody touches them, you know. So that's why we wanted a period of time where everything could quarantine. Now, that being said, when we do allow people in by appointment, staff always has some sort of face covering. We are asking that our library patrons have a face covering, and so far everyone has been wonderful about it and understand. And then we give them a little hand sanitizer when they come in the door, and then they're allowed to browse. So, and on September 15th, Phase 5 started, in that the state started the interlibrary loan system again. So we're kind of excited about that. There is a mandatory quarantine period that they set forth. Anything that we put on the van, we have to quarantine for 3 days, and then it goes to them. Anything we get in from the van, we have to quarantine for 3 days. So this is kind of a stipulation that the state libraries put forth to try to keep everybody in the state safe. So far, they have 133 libraries that are actively participating. We are one of them, and our patrons are really happy. It's just a step in the right direction. They've told us that when they started, the first 3 days of the interlibrary loan starting up again, there were 1,741 requests statewide, and there were approximately 1,402 March ships. And as I said, there were 133 active libraries and 218 total participants. To date, our library has requested 25 items and received 15 items from other libraries, and we've sent 23 items out to other libraries. This is a reciprocal borrowing system that really does a wonderful job in expanding our collection. So, and the last part of this handout, I do have the most current statistics as through August, and I did through August because we still have a couple of days remaining for September, but I can give you a general figure of what that figure might be for curbside and telephone. If you like that handout, it gives you a lot more detail. Take one and pass it around.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some updates to what we've expended so far based on this paperwork. I believe this is dated August 4th, and I'd be happy to give you the most recent or more current expenditures, so you have a better idea of where we're at.
And gentlemen, another week, Laura will have an updated figures up to the end of the third quarter for us anyways, another week. So we'll have more accountability where we'll be going into the last quarter of the year, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Laura? So, gentlemen, if you have no questions for Holly or the trustees, As you can see, their budget is down $2,685 over the last year. And Holly gave a great explanation of all their things since they've been going through the COVID and how they faced back in the opening of it. I think it's been a tremendous job, and I'm glad that the patrons have stayed by you and wanted to still use you. So I would entertain a motion to approve the budget as submitted to us at $140,871.
Second.
Motion made by Reuben Wentworth to approve the budget as submitted by the library trustees of $140,871, second by Mr. McDonald. Any further discussion?
I just had one question.
Yes, sir.
That's on account 309. I was reading your backup here. The fire and burglar monitoring and testing. Is that a contract?
Yes.
It is, okay.
That runs through the town hall with all our other ones that Josh set up.
Okay. And also I had the one on so the elevator and the service experts on the heating, is that all the same? That runs through the town hall?
No,
Oh,
specifically for the library.
oh, okay.
And our elevator and our heating and cooling system.
So those are both contracts?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on library budget?
Well, we can't get you to go through the rest of these and cut like this.
Well, you better say the same thing to Courtney next week she comes up tonight. Well,
I like that.
hopefully you looked at it. I'll poll the board at this point. Mr. Holt? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Yes. Reuben Wentworth, yes, too. Vote the affirmative. Thank you, Holly, and thanks for the great presentation.
As always, if you need anything further, just reach out and let us know.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in there this year.
Thank you.
He seconded what I was asking, I was entertaining a motion, he seconded.
Oh, okay,
So I made the motion.
okay, thank you.
Next is the water department. Courtney, I'll let you give kind of scold Virgil right now, seeing you hadn't looked at the budget. I'd take quite offense to that. So tonight, gentlemen, we have Courtney with us, superintendent of the water department, with a budget of $421,045, down $73,393 from last year. So if you're all wondering, that's about a 17% decrease.
Good girl.
Now, you praised everybody else for lowering theirs down. We better stand up and have a parade here.
Got rid of those.
Girl.
Got rid of those high commission salaries, that's what it was. That's $9,000 a year that they all got. So anything you want to highlight for us tonight, Courtney, before we ask any questions?
No. Particularly, one thing that we're kind of proud of is the electricity expense. We've really cut down our pumping times, so we've only expended, I think it was 18,000 to this quarter when we budgeted 33. And that's due to run times being cut down to 7 hours a day, which in turn reflects on the treatment cost as well. So we're not pumping as much chemical.
We done the pump at Liberty?
So it's all set.
It's all done, so
we did
both
some-
pumps are done.
Yeah, so we did some non-compliance sampling, and the arsenic is now 0.0034, which is well below the detection level presented in July 20.
Are we good? Run that well and start jumping them again?
Yeah, so we have to, because it's been offline for so long, and we had a couple of weeks that we had to take care of. This week, we're gonna get the chlorine pump set back up, and the pump, and what we'll be doing is going Monday to Thursday. We're still somewhat busy, there's still a lot of tourism, that people aren't going home, so we'll give that a break. But we made it through the drought with one well.
I don't think a lot of men are gonna be going home until we shut it
Exactly.
down.
There's a lot of people that can stay remote, that maybe not on the summer lines, but they're year-round, have year-round water. And I suspect we might take them.
Have you monitored your 2 meters up on Jewett Farm Road and over by Back Bay Bridge?
So we do it with our meter reading, and we're due to read it the first month. So
I'm just wondering if there's an increase in those summer lines where so many people have been up for so long, especially with the case that's going to be coming up, so we can show that as part of this,
Yes.
and still why we stayed where we were.
I didn't bring it with me, I did collect one read throughout the summer. Just post it on my desk, and keep an eye on it, but I can get them.
I would just like to see if there's been an uptick, an increase, especially for a case that's going to be coming up that we might need it, if there's such an increase in saying this is why the fees stayed where they were. Okay, I think the budget's fabulous.
Great job.
It's a good job reducing it. You've done more than what we expected to. The water department has fulfilled their duties this year in high regards, as far as I'm concerned. They've done a great job hanging in there with everybody, especially on late nights when there's been some digs, especially after staying out especially, or Friday nights, or at the Legion, fixing a leak, and then Saturday morning, first thing again. So gentlemen, if you have no other questions for Courtney on her budget, I will entertain a motion.
I get some questions. 40, 41, and 42. Those are dental, health, and life insurance.
Those aren't available yet.
But in the backup, it's waiting for rates.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the rates for.
Why do we, this is just a question now, why do we have that in this budget and none of the other budgets?
Because this is paid by the water users, not by the taxpayers.
This is a separate entity.
Water department still has to be taken out and kept separate as a separate one.
We're just the commissioners of it.
Same with the retirement.
So
Everything.
So how does this figure become fact?
Well,
Through the town insurance?
through the town insurance, when we get the quotes in, when we get the rates in for the health insurance, the dental, the life and disability, we'll have to the town administrator will bring it back to us along with the insurance. We'll have to readjust this. With the figures that were there last year, compared there, the budget substantially still looks like it will be down roughly about around 45,000, I would say, 45 to 50,000.
My concern, Mr. Chairman, you answered the questions, is what I thought they were. But my concern is, I think this should be in every budget, just like it is here. And I brought that up as a budget committee member, and I was told that we get our insurance through a pool, and it's too hard to figure it out.
We usually get it in November, we get the figures for insurance, when they put them in front of us.
But what he's asking for is to be put in every department,
Everybody.
broken out instead of a.
Because right now, we know what the cost is for the water department. You do not know what the cost is for your police department, your highway department. Those budgets are lacking that information.
Well, something we can discuss that next year. I think it's a little late this year to change it out.
That's the only reason I brought it up. We could also have Laura just draw up, get what we're paying the police insurance,
Yeah.
retirement, and each thing of it, bring it to us.
Yeah, but my opinion is it should show in the
On
budget.
here, on the budget.
Budget sheet.
So years ago, they kind of pooled all the insurance.
I
They
know.
do that, and I would cost.
So,
Bob,
I'll make a motion.
Liz, hold on just a second. Liz has
so,
go along with your question.
yep, a couple of things. First, Virgil, to follow what you said, Laura has an Excel spreadsheet with how many, family plans in this department and that department and two-person plans and so on and so forth. And I'm sure she would be happy to provide that. The second thing is in regards to putting it into each individual budget, that may not be allowed with the Department of Revenue because they have a chart of codes, a code of accounts. And so that's why the 4-digit number, just as an example, for the benefits budget or the insurance budget, that's why those things are in there. The DRA has certain codes with the 4 digits I'm talking about, not the 3-digit sub-accounts. But,
Well, every budget I've dealt with has it in it.
so every budget that I've ever dealt with has not. I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying that
Well, we can put it in,
we have to follow the DRA,
we can put it in the waterworks budget.
Because Waterworks was always kept as a separate entity.
I don't care. Oh, okay.
They're a separate unit than the town budget.
I understand that. I understand the philosophy.
If you'd like, at the next meeting, bring it up next meeting. We always ask Laura to check with the RA which way it has to be done.
And she can also bring forward to all of you the Excel sheet that shows the breakdown that you're looking.
Good breakdown, so we know what we're paying each department. Yeah.
That would
That's
help.
when the insurance comes in.
Yeah, yeah.
They're probably gonna say coldest spike, because they're giving us money back, now they're gonna eat it back.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, if there's nothing else, we'll approve the budget as presented tonight at 421,045 minus the benefits and that insurances.
Yeah, but if you cut this in half, we could say, then the whole town budget wouldn't even be up 3%.
We got plenty of glory.
Well, I don't know. I don't really know if the tenants downtown would like that or not having water in the morning or.
Oh, I did have one more question.
Sorry.
But that was on water meters. Your water meter program?
Yep.
Last year you had 10,000. You budgeted, you're down to 5.
Yep, so, we bought, $2,500 worth of meters for this year. And then when we were asked to cut our budget, due to COVID, we gave back some of that money and I forecasted the other 5,000. Because of the fact that realistically, we're not getting into the homes like we should be due to COVID.
Right.
So there was no sense using that money, so we let it go.
Okay, as long as we keep the program going.
The meters are there.
No, it's
what it
important to
does,
keep it,
but-
that's, yeah, especially when you keep finding them that people are on full time and they think this summer and it's.
Oh, yeah. I remember you.
So Laura, at this time, if we just added in last year's amounts of the
Ones that are up there.
health, dental, liability, and the insurances, could you give me a total on that tonight? We'll just prove as with those numbers, knowing that we're gonna have it. I just don't like to leave those lines blank right now. Is
Is he based off of?
What was
we had
approved?
last
Well-
year?
based off what we had last year, because that's what we're gonna do with it. It's the only budget really that's not completed at this point is theirs.
Well, there's one more besides the benefits and insurance budget. It's the administration budget.
Yes.
So when it comes time for the administration budget, every year I always ask you to approve all the lines except for, there's one line, it's the dues and membership fees or whatever, because of the NHMA dues, because we don't get the dues amount until we get the contracts. It all comes out at the same time. So, I mean, you could approve the lines except for those particular ones that haven't been set yet. I mean, and then.
Right, well, then I'll put that in my motion. I won't put it that we're not approving those lines. I'll just say lacking the lines from insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
Dealing with the New Hampshire Municipal Association.
Yeah.
What? Did it with Lake Region Planning and all the rest of them. I mean, just say we ain't using you anymore. Then they'll come up with figures when you need them.
Gentlemen, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget submitted by the Water Department tonight at 421,045, lacking the insurances and the benefits, disabilities. Seconded by Paul Rochelle. Any further discussion? Poll the board. Mr. Whitman? Yes. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes,
Vote is in the affirmative. Thank you, Courtney, very much.
Thank you.
great job.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Bring the book down to you tomorrow.
Okay, gentlemen,
Bring the book down to you tomorrow, start on the rest of them.
being that much, that we're done, other business as deemed necessary, you have Highway Department gravel bid clarification. Before someone says we approve this, we had talked about approving it, but I had requested a letter from Pike stating that we'd like to have it back, knowing that the clarification was they were not going to receive the bid. It was going to go to somebody else because the way they bid it on cubic yards versus weight.
We got the letter.
So in the minutes, there was never a motion. The motions were pulled by myself and Mr. Whitman. So we need to make a motion and clarify it that the Northeast gets a gravel bid. Yeah, right, correct? Town administrator?
Yeah, because they were the recommendation.
Why do you have to use that again?
Because
Because there was never a clarification of an approved motion on the floor that night.
that was your intent, and everything happened, everyone was in agreement, it's just the motion
The
never.
motion never carried through.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you can send me in the back room for an hour. I'll get you finishing it. Yes. So if I'm not mistaken, it should be Northeast received the gravel bid award
As presented.
as presented.
Second.
Motion is made to approve the gravel award to Northeast as presented by the highway agent, second by Mr. McDonald. Any further discussion? Hold the board, Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Yes. Ms. Wentworth, yes, both in the affirmative. So the other thing you had tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. McDonald, you're raising your hand, do you have something?
Yes. We received this, email. It's on the state's gonna have meetings and stuff for the swipe, for donor towns and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that we should either put this in the paper so the taxpayers can see it, so they can look up and go to these meetings. I think that's important, because that has to do with the taxes that the people pay. And the state's asking to hear from the older generation and stuff. They want to hear from them on how it's going to affect them. And I think that's important that this should go.
Are you talking about the coalition community thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I
Well,
think we should put it in the paper or something to let the townspeople know, the taxpayers know, that this is coming up and they're having meetings on it, and that they should think about paying attention to it.
so just so you know, the press have been at that court case. They've been in attendance and it's been on the news.
But when it goes, but that ain't, they're not asking for the court case. They're asking for the older generation, even younger generation, taxpayers to come to the meeting so they can hear them, either write letters or hear from them on how this will affect them.
Would you like to go? Would you like to attend?
I don't have time to attend. Between meetings at night and working all day. I mean, this week I got 4 meetings. But I think we should notify the townspeople about it. I mean, it has to do with their taxes. That's my opinion. I don't know how the board feels, but I just think the townspeople should know.
Well, I think it's, I think it's a very unfair system.
Oh, yeah.
The way the Democrats portrayed it in the courts, and I think the courts are wrong. Just because Alton has been conservative over the years and not offering the full educational benefits such as Claremont has, because the high school that they have over there, they have shopping plazas, they have the Lowe's, they have a big shopping plaza over there, and they're still considered a poor community. Alton's considered a rich community because of Lakeland and Misaki, but yet we've been very conservative with our funds over the years. We have not overextended ourselves. We tried to live within our budget. Some people say we've been too frugal, but I just believe it's been more conservative how we spend our funds. When it came time to build a high school, we did it with another community. We shared the funds. Unfortunately, sometimes the way our society works today, we are slack when we want to be conservative. And we should spend more money out. But I still think the property taxes that we pay in this community and other communities, it's a fair way. Because if you own the $1 million home, you're going to pay your more fair share of taxes than somebody who owns a $100,000 home. And until they get off this, I don't know how else they would do it besides a broad-based tax and a sales tax. For some reason, they're set on having an income tax. And why anybody over in Concord, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, would want to tax my wallet because I want to work harder and try to get ahead, and taxing on something over 40 hours a week or even at 40 hours a week instead of doing it on a sales tax when they could hit every tourist coming across that state border is beyond me. But the property tax system in our state, I think, is one of the fairest around. Because everyone wants to say the rich should pay more. This is one way the rich pays more than the poor people. It's one fair way. But unfortunately, you get the news. Do I want to say fake news? I won't say fake news, but you get the news that make us look bad because we have Lakeland and Misaki on our borders.
But you know what happens, Mr. Chairman? Just a little quick note. The town of Claremont, I understand where you're coming from. I agree with you 100%. But the town of Claremont got really hammered with their industry. It all left. Years, I'm going back.
They got their industry hammered, but yet they got a Lowe's in there. They got some of those big shopping plazas in there.
They're so far behind, Mr. Chairman, financially.
But that's their own fault.
Well, yes, well, we're lucky here. We don't have any industry in this town.
No.
Which,
No, and we've been very frugal, but that's their own fault. For rainy days. I mean, we've done good in this town planning for rainy days.
Yes, ma'am.
Berlin went through it.
Berlin's still in it.
Just,
I could bring up this one, I have some drafts.
Can't you
on it.
just handle this one?
at Selectmen's,
Really have to be brought up and,
Yeah,
power
I'll
to.
handle it. Absolutely.
No, but
yeah, I don't quite understand it.
that's right, and when the paper
Who's parking over on the property?
Yeah.
Right,
Probably, right?
when that happened,
And one thing is to put a fence.
Right down there.
the state is,
I just can't see bringing this out.
yeah,
when the mills left up there, the state had their fingers all over us.
This one I knew you had to bring.
the mills moved out of this part of the country.
Everything goes to Canada.
Northeast.
Everything goes to Canada, free trade agreement.
No, I went down south. I used to work at them, I know.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, town administrator has one item that needs to be brought up tonight, and I will turn the floor over to her at this point.
So very quickly, in regards to Whitney versus Town of Alton, the 3 deeds, Jim Sessler is creating them to get them registered at the registry, the 3 properties for 171 Main Street.
He thought he was gonna pay.
Yeah, he paid. Yep, he did. Yep, he paid, he bought back all 3. So the deeds have to be done. The question from the attorney is, do you want to have one selectman sign the deeds on behalf of the entire board, similar to what you do at the auction? Or do you want to have the signature block with all 5 of you signing it?
The chairman said,
Chairman
it's
should-
fine by me.
That works for me too.
Then you need a motion of that, gentlemen.
Also, allow the chairman to sign the deeds for our attorney.
Second?
Motion has been made by Virgil McDonald to have the chairman sign over the quitclaim deeds for the Whitney's properties and the town of Alton properties, be signed over, seconded by Mr. Rochelle. Any further discussion? All those in favor, I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth will abstain. 4-4, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
And just for the record, I'll put Mr. McDonald voted in favor, Mr. Whitman voted in favor, Mr. Rochelle voted in favor, Mr. Holt in favor, Mr. Wentworth abstained.
No one on the Bear property.
Do we what?
We have to have that reappraised up there, or?
I don't know. The
It
assessor,
doesn't seem like anything's working up there.
the assessor will advise, the town was, this is a routine thing. That when somebody files an abatement, they can either go to Superior Court and file it, or they can,
Yeah, because we denied the abatement. We went on what the tax assessor said.
so I don't
We
have,
paid all that money to have it assessed.
so because the town is now in litigation, this should not be discussed in open session. And secondly, I do not have any answers for your questions. And thirdly, it will be dealt with properly by all involved, because our town attorney will be representing the town on this with the assessor. Yeah.
Gentlemen, there's nothing being more, it is 7:29. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Paul herself to adjourn, second by Mr. Holt. I will poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fine evening spending here with you tonight. Thank you. Tune in next week, same time, same place.
Thank you very much.